Where's the baby?
That's mine right there. Grandpa over here, show a little respect. But anyway, my old brother Andy is tired, and so he asked me to get up here and make a fool of myself. And he was just lucky to get here. He just played in a big golf tournament in Milwaukee, and that's why he's dressed like he is. And Danny had a fly in, that's why his hair is like it is. And but at any rate, we didn't. There's no program planned, as you can tell. We just wanted to. This is a very impromptu situation. We want to get some. What we want to do is we want to finish this evening off with a very, very nice, warm evening for this great lady who's 90 years old come Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday. I think it's great that all of you young people were able to come out here tonight, because I think it's a wonderful tribute to this wonderful lady. And she's very, very appreciative of this. And we would like, I would like for Bill and Mary and Andy, whoever wants to say something, I want them all to say something, their thoughts about this. And also, any of you people that might want to say something, you keep it short, because I'm going to take up most of the time. But you can, if you have some thoughts that you would like to express to Grandma, feel free to do that. Because basically what's going to happen when we've all said our thing, Grandma's going to start talking, and you know what that means. So that we might be here a lot later than the babysitters will allow us to be. But basically, I think it would be nice if some of you would express some of your thoughts about, somebody who's lived a life like Mom has, and for 90 years, and done so many wonderful things to all of us, for all of us. Why, I think that might be a nice way to just show a little tribute. It doesn't have to be much. I myself could sit and think about all the wonderful things that she has done through the years, and that would be kind of boring because everybody knows how wonderful she is. I try to remember some of the things that it just came to mind, that some of the more exciting things that she would do. And I probably got this wrong, but she used to do the laundry out in the backyard. That's the way hillbillies did it when they lived in Paderborn and whatever. And she was scrubbing the clothes out on the board there. And I remember, and I don't know what precipitated her fall, but there she was on her hands and knees in the backyard right by the back porch. And she was on her hands and knees, and I think it was me or it was Andy. Somebody came by and said, "Mom, what are you looking for?" And her knees were bleeding, and she got up there and was about ready to slug. That was a wonderful memory, wasn't it? But her life's been full of those wonderful experiences. So that's the kind of thing that we're celebrating.
That was you that came and said
That was me. See, that was me that said, "What are you looking for, Mom?" I was always on top of things. You can see that. But at any rate, enough of that. I'm going to ask Andy.
Start with Bill.
Bill is Bill has a tendency to nod off later on, so we want to get him up early. So I'm going to ask Bill to say something, and Bill promises to keep it to about 3 minutes.
Bill, stand over there.
I just sat here thinking about when Joe was talking about what some of the things happened when we were growing up, and it occurred to me, if you just think back, Mom was born in 1908. Just think of everything that's happened in those 90 years of her lifetime, the changes, the things that have happened, people flying in airplanes, telephones, I know when Mom grew up, they had a crystal set, radio, television, electricity, indoor toilets. She didn't know any of that stuff, and you think about to live that long and go through that, see that many changes, just that in itself, how really, terrific that is. And Joe was talking about Mom doing the laundry outside. I remember Mom had one of those old, I guess everybody did, those old wash machines with the wringer thing, and one day she got excited and she got her arm through there and
No,
wrung it
that's,
through it, I think.
wrong.
She didn't?
Electric washer.
It's my arm.
Oh, wasn't that your arm? Did you break your arm too? Did you get an arm? No. Mom's got a better memory. She said it was her arm.
She wanted to put your head through there.
He got his in too, though.
She got excited and grabbed your arm.
Well, Mom and Andy always had a little friction in between them. This is probably not the right thing to say, but I was thinking when talking about Andy, because Andy and my dad, our dad was very, God rest his soul, was a really hard-nosed Dutchman. And I'll never forget when my dad bought a 1947 Plymouth Green, and that was a super car. And I guess it was the first night or two that we had the car, and Andy had a date. And I think the only date it was until he met Eileen. And he took the car out, and he got sideswiped.
No.
It was Mom that was out on the date.
No, that's not true.
Isn't that true?
No, he went up on 14th and Main.
Mother, you don't know what you're talking
That
Just keep quiet.
Morris truck was there, and he terminated.
No, that was another.
No, that's
That was another accident with Grandpa's car.
no, that's right. I remember
It's
that.
going to take me a half an hour to straighten out all of these things.
No, but I know that's true, and Andy is wrong, or Mom's wrong, because we still slept upstairs. And Joe and I shared a room, and Andy and Ray shared a room, and Mary had her own room. And I can remember when Andy came home that night. Of course, nobody locked their doors, and it was I don't know what time.
Closet.
But Andy came home that night with that car, and he had to tell Dad about what happened. And Dad, of course, if you knew Dad, he just blew his stack.
Main Street.
And I can remember hearing the noise in the kitchen. And I came down those 2 flights of stairs, and when you got to the bottom of the stairs, there was a swinging door that led into the kitchen. And I just sat on that bottom step. I guess I must have been 5, 6 years old. And I watched through the crack at Dad and Andy. And what I saw just shocked me, and poor old Andy was totally innocent in the thing. It wasn't his fault at all that the accident happened. But when you guys were talking about Mom before, I'm already past my 3 minutes. But when Mom lived where they live now, one morning she got out, went into the car, and had the garage door down. Mom went right through the garage door. And Dad kind of lost it there too. I think, he kind of lost it there too. I mean, there's a lot of things we could all say about Mom, and I think we're all just happy that she's lived the life she has, and that we're here with her, and she's here with us still. Aunt Rosella, I guess that's about a lady that she's as close to as there is right now. And we're glad that they came, and Nick and Paul and Marita and everybody else. But I would like, and I hope I'm not doing the wrong thing here, but I would hope that the grandchildren, in particular, when you can, whenever possible, stop by and 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever it is. I know it's hard for some to do that. But I know how much Mom would appreciate it, because if you can imagine yourself, sometimes she feels kind of tied down, and she is, and just somebody coming by means an awful lot to her. And I think, I'm not talking just for the grandchildren, I think all of us, but I think those of the grandchildren that are around here, if we can make a little extra effort, just doing it for Grandma, And I think that she'd really appreciate that, you know. And maybe another 10 years when you have her 100th, then she'll, you know, maybe she'll be able to thank you even more for it then. But that's the only thing I would, you know, and if I'm wrong in asking of that of you, I apologize. But I think sometimes we kind of take for granted, and I know she would love it, but she would never tell you to come by, okay?
Okay, that was Bill's rendition of Grandpa Gets Mad. So I think now we're going to have Mary say only sweet things. Grandma.
I can't get through, Lois. I've gained some weight. It's all that dessert. Well, hi, everybody.
Hi, Aunt Mary.
Being the only girl, I remember a lot of things growing up. One of them was that our main pastime in the summer was playing baseball in the backyard, and I could out-hit any of them. I was known as, the guys in the foundry across the alley used to call me Stan Man. And I was a real tomboy.
Broke windows.
I played with one other girl in the neighborhood, and she ended up playing for Phillips 66 professional girls team. So we had a lot of competition. Her name was Barbara Huffman, and I'll never forget her because she was my girlfriend, but she was, I don't know, very masculine. And I guess it took me a long time that when I got to high school, I was still trying to deal with this, growing up with 4 boys, and not really knowing how to be a girl, I guess.
That was Bobby Hoffman.
Yeah, you did, but you were also a boy.
No, I mean, she was Bobby Hoffman.
Oh, well, Bobby, okay. Another thing I remember is the baths on Saturday evenings out in the country, where Mother would set a tub of water in the sun so it would get warm enough for us to take our baths. And we used to fight over who would get to use the water first. And when we moved to Belleville, how happy we were and how excited because we had an indoor bathroom with a tub. And you mean we can actually go to the bathroom on that, Mom? So mostly my memory goes back. And the older you get, the more they go back to the years when you were younger. Now I deal with Mom. I go try to see her 4 or 5 times a week if I can. I think, too, I agree with Bill. The best thing you could do for her, the nicest thing you could do for her would be to give her some of your time. If you're in Belleville and you're driving a few blocks from her house, swing by and give her 10 minutes. I came by the other day and the door was still locked. And she said, you know, the other day I went to lock my door at night and it hadn't been opened all day. It was still locked. That doesn't sound, I thought, well, you mean nobody came yesterday. I didn't make it the day before either. Now I'm going to start working part-time and I may not make it as often as I have been. But like I say, I think that's the best gift you could give her. Thank you.
Good, Mary.
Mary really could hit the hell out of
Broke windows in the
And
fountain.
here we are twins, and we were in the 7th grade, and we stood together for that confirmation picture, and she was this tall, and I was this tall, and she just knocked the hell out of that ball and break those windows over there.
Who was the one that hit it? Who threw it to her?
I don't know, but
Whoever wasn't afraid of
she
being
was a terrific athlete, and the only problem was then she became like 14 and went to high school, and she didn't play any ball anymore, and she would have been in today's situation, she would have been a fabulous
I played ball
high school
after
player, but she never didn't pursue it. But that's another story. But again, I would say this: Mom really looks forward to, like these guys are saying, everybody to come by and we try to go out there and do some things for her in the yard now and then, and so do that, and when you get a chance. Andy's got a few words to say, and then any of you, we'll get to you then. No, Andy doesn't have anything to say. Yes, he does.
I never have a few words to say. But no, I want to correct two fallacies. It was my arm that went through the ringer. I remember it well. It might have happened some other time, but I guarantee you, my arm went, I was a kind of an inquisitive kid, and I got into an awful lot of trouble, scrapes and that sort of thing.
Go over and stand behind your mom. Lois is taking the
I hate
picture.
to be told what to do.
You never did like to be
I
told
am
what to do.
68 years old. And I've got enough.
Just get over here.
You're only 67.
Yeah.
No, I do remember.
You too. I know.
That's another thing you'll never get over. As I said, I'm 67, going on 68, and my mother still thinks she knows absolutely what's best for me. If I leave town, she thinks I should get home or whatever the case may be. But anyway, my arm did go through the ring. I remember it
Yes,
very well.
it did, I remember.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah, I remember.
Hurt like hell.
Both of them did.
And I also know that the night that
Yours did, too?
Joe was talking about the car, and it was a 47 Plymouth, and we got home at a very reasonable hour, maybe 11 o'clock, and it was reasonable. And my dad said, well, it's unfortunate that you had that accident.
But just come on in, let's have a coffee.
But I'm really happy that you didn't get hurt. And then he kicked me in the ass. And I spent the rest of the night somewhere downtown. I didn't go home. We just had this altercation. He did most of the talking. The evidence was there, and it happened on Edgemont Hill, and I was driving in the center lane when I should have been driving on the right, girls. Remember? And some guy passed me on the right and hit the right front fender and didn't do a whole lot of damage, but enough to get Pop very, very excited. But anyway, the problem with this sort of thing is you stir up all of these old memories, and they're very interesting for those of us who lived them, and you make the mistake of assuming perhaps that everybody else might be interested too. So you got to, but we had an interesting life. We were, as you know, we were started out in Paderborn in a very, very, I think primitive is the word. Anyway you hack it, it was a primitive environment. You didn't have a damn thing, and I'm old enough to remember that. I remember my earliest recollections go back to about 33 or 34. And that was the height of the Depression. It was the height of, my dad wasn't working, or working whenever there was a day's worth of work, whatever the case may be. I remember being on relief, and that was something that meant that I think every 2 weeks, so don't hold me to this, you got a certain amount of groceries if you went to where's Millstadt, the Maserans or something. That's pretty close, isn't it? To get these things, and how excited the kids would be because you had all these store-bought items. So, but anyway, we moved to town, and all of a sudden, life took a dramatic change. There was no question about it. You went from a school with 5 kids in my class to one where we had 40, and these kids were streetwise, and boy, us country boys didn't know what the hell was going on, but we were easy prey. But it was an experience. I was 13 years old, and all of a sudden I was thrust into this new environment, and it was a great. Well, no, it was an experience. I won't say it was great. In many instances, it was. I can remember. I'll just relate one thing. I remember getting on. We went to Blessed Sacrament for a basketball game shortly after we came to town. And I had bus fare, but I was afraid I wouldn't know where to get off of the bus. So rather than get on the bus at whatever it is, 8,500, I walked all the way home late in the evening so that I wouldn't risk missing my stop at 14th Street. That's the kind of thing that you run into when you come from Paderborn into this big city environment. But anyway, this is Mom's Day. We should all be so lucky to have 90 years, and I mean, I think good years. Mother's been very healthy in spite of the fact that she's had a few setbacks. Her mind is very sharp. She can still crab about things and does occasionally about boxes in the garage. I got them out the other day. My God, I thought it was going to be our undoing. But we did it. She didn't tell me she was going to buy a new car. But anyway, a good lady, very kind lady, very understanding. She put up with my father for a long time, and that wasn't easy. I'll guarantee you, I can attest to that. But she put up with Jake, and without Mom, Jake could have been a lost soul. The kids always knew where home was and knew that Mom was there and was resourceful and made something out of nothing. And quite often that's what it took, because usually there wasn't anything, and that's not poor mom. I think it's just the truth. Because I remember agonizing over a quarter because I wanted in the worst way to go out to a movie. And I didn't have a quarter, and I don't know whether she did or not. She told me she didn't. She either did a very convincing job because it stayed that way. But that was the way it was as we grew up. But we've been very fortunate to have a very wonderful extended family, a lot of cousins, good friends, and we are friends. We're able to get together and enjoy one another, and we need to appreciate that because that's not the way it works in many families. We're grateful for that, and we're grateful for the fact that you all came out this evening, and Rosella particularly, Nick and Marita and Paul for bringing her, and we ask the good Lord to bless Mom for however many years He has in mind for her, whatever that happens to be, that she be to continue to enjoy good health, and so that we continue to appreciate her. Thank you very much.
So I think we've got a cross-section of stories of things that went on through the years, and she has been, and like Andy said, she still tries to tell us what to do, and how to live our lives, and that's probably pretty good, though, and because, when I was 10 years old, had my paper route, she'd write out the receipts and make sure that people paid, so she still thinks she has to do all those things, and that's good. So we got a few more minutes. Is anybody here?
How about Aunt Rosella?
Aunt Rosella, do you have anything to say? Does anybody here want to say a few words before we turn Mom loose on us? Grandma loose on us? It's all been said? Well, not really. How about over there? Michelle wants to say something.
When I was
Andy.
in second grade and we moved to Iowa, Grandma and Grandpa let me stay with them for 2 weeks so that I could finish out till Christmas vacation. And Grandma was so good to me.
See, you were a good
I
person.
had to tell them. It was just like home.
Somebody back here.
I remember Grandma and Grandpa's backyard as a wonderful place because we used to get together back there and have barbecues and tomatoes. I remember tomatoes at Grandma's house. They were always very good, and they had them we never had tomatoes just as a dish in themselves. They did it, Grandma and Grandpa's, and that was great. It was delicious. And I remember Uncle Bill and Uncle Joe hiding in the bushes in the back of of their backyard, and that backyard seemed huge at the time. And they would hide back there in those bushes and play monster, which I do now with Mike, which is a big deal for Martha now. And I know that's why I do it, because they would be hiding back there, and we would go back there with a very anxious and scared just to walk back there, and they'd come out and scare us. It was just a real delightful backyard, a lot of fun with all those bushes and trees. And I remember the trains going by there were always fascinating to watch and to hear, and listen for them to come. And what's the name of that tree with the thorns on it?
Locust?
The locust trees, yeah. They're always kind of scary. That little locust forest that was in the back there. Just a lot of fun in the backyard.
Thank you. That was, because I know my dad always looked forward to having 42 grandchildren there. On weekends, he loved that.
Especially at
Yeah.
Easter.
Yeah, at Easter. And he just said, when are all these lovely grandkids coming? He'd just say, Mom, invite them. And she would. But, kids always did feel very comfortable because Mom would take the edge off of Dad. Much like Joan tries to do with me today, and I guess Eileen does with Andy or whatever. But, is anybody over there? We've got a couple of ladies waving. I don't know what they. You can go to the bathroom if you want. Okay, Kate's going to say something.
I have the oldest grandchild member, a huge treat, because we had the plain old ugly
Come to the middle,
automatic
Debbie.
washer, and
Kathy?
she still had the
She can't hear
She
you.
still had the ringer washer,
Yeah.
and we'd spend Sunday night, if we could, that was the night we wanted to spend, was Sunday night, because Monday was wash day.
Yeah.
And Grandma would let us put the
was
wash
fun
through the
day.
ringer. And then she had the clothes poles in the back, and Mom never hung laundry out. So that was so fun to hang laundry out. And going over on Sunday, Mom didn't let us drink red Kool-Aid at home for the usual reasons.
I still got
And
that aluminum picture.
Grandma made red Kool-Aid in a big aluminum pot with a wooden spoon.
Yeah.
And that was the only red Kool-Aid that was it. You had to make it I tried making it for my kids in an aluminum pot with a wooden spoon. It just didn't taste the same. And that's the truth, I did. That's my memory, that red Kool-Aid and the Easter cookies with the white icing and the red hots for the eyes.
And the Cardinal baseball game either on the TV or the radio.
And the windows steaming up on Thanksgiving Day,
Oh, yeah.
because we all go to Grandma's for Thanksgiving, and the football on the TV and the windows all steamed up. It was great. And I also, my best memory is when Grandma told me on my 6th birthday, I was playing in her driveway, and she hollered out through the door, "You have a new brother for a birthday present."
Thanks, Kate.
You still don't drink coffee, do you?
I always drink coffee.
Oh, you do now.
We go to Grandma's and watch Wizard
And
of
who was
Oz.
at Grandma's when was it, who stepped on the moon the first time, Neil Armstrong?
No,
Remember that? I saw that at
we were in
Grandma's house.
Chicago.
Yeah,
We were in Italy.
we were all at Grandma and Grandpa's house.
Thanks, Renee. We got a couple more.
Wasn't Neil?
I was thinking about the time, this is, I don't know, this, well, not Rotary. And she knew it, and everybody knew it, but it was like, so what?
Is there any more in there?
You guys remember that?
Well, thanks a lot, Brian. So Christopher.
I don't remember this. I've heard the story so many times.
Oh, I know what he's going to say.
When I
was
was
gonna
like
say.
3 or 4, I used to call Grandma my girlfriend.
Oh, you remember that?
I
Yeah.
remember.
No, we told him that.
Oh, yeah.
But you tricked me out of giving up my bottle. I used to walk around with a bottle hanging out of my mouth. Getting too old and doing that. I was like,
Yeah, he was playing football at Alton.
so I went down there. We used to live like 3 houses down, and I would walk down there to see my girlfriend. And I think she had some orange juice or something.
No, an orange.
An orange. And she said, "I'll trade you this orange for that bottle." And I didn't think it was going to be permanent. I gave up the bottle. She wouldn't give it back.
He was always
And thanks, Chris. And Joan and I remember that night because he was in his crib going, "I want my bottle." But he never got his bottle back. But after all, when you're that tall. Yeah, Julie.
I've been thinking lately of how fortunate that I am that I have a grandma who's lived long enough to see me to get to be an old lady. Because when I think back of the times that, like Kate was saying, spent the night at Grandma's house. So when I was a little girl, my memories too are of the red Kool-Aid in that pitcher. It was a metal pitcher. And
Aluminum one.
an aluminum pitcher, that's
I
right.
still got it, yeah.
Yeah, you do. I still have it. And of us spending the night at your house, and in that one room that I guess was Uncle Bill's room.
Yeah.
But you were still there because we would wake you up in the morning. So we'd come and
Well, Uncle
remember
Bill
we'd
was
get
there a
on.
long time.
He was there for quite a long time.
Couldn't get rid of him.
So he was just there and there and there. So that was the game. We'd go pull on your toes to wake you up in the morning and listen to the trains, and that was wonderful, warm memories of childhood. And then when I was in high school, I would jog over to your house. And one time jogged and the dog followed me and got killed on the highway. And by the time I got to your house, I was so upset because Tigger was on Main Street smashed. And I guess, we call Dad or something?
Yeah, you did, yeah, we were afraid to.
I was, yes, interesting, isn't it? Because he was a little bit like his old man. Yeah, why did I have that dog following me? And Grandma reamed him for I couldn't believe it. I was upset, and she said, "Oh, for heaven's sake, she's upset. Would you stop it? You know, the dog's dead. I killed it. I saw it be killed." And he was upset because the dog got killed. And so Grandma yelled at him, and it felt better. I felt better. And then when I got older and started dating Joe Shane and went off to the Far East, and Grandma said, "You're lucky you have a patient man. You're lucky that he's patient with you." And I thought, well, maybe and maybe not. And then when I was pregnant, I remember then thinking how lucky I was that I've grown up with a lady as wise as Grandma Arlett, because I'd go lay on your floor with a big belly and we'd compare pregnancy stories. And she told me about her dry births and about the twins and about, Bill. And it was lovely because I thought, not many people have this opportunity to talk with their grandma about their own life experiences that we had. And then when I had my own children, it didn't end. We'd go over there and spend time. And my own Danny, when he was old enough to talk, I told him this was great grandma. And I thought through the mouths of babes, he shortened it to just great. And so for the longest time, do you remember that?
Yeah.
He called you just great. And I thought, well, maybe he knew about what he was talking about because it was true. And so now still, we go there now and compare husband stories. And I thought it's interesting how some things just don't change. Sometimes it just repeats itself, right? Anyway, I feel very fortunate because I feel like now that I'm an old lady, I've had the benefit of growing up with a wonderful woman who, when she turned 80, said, "I feel like I'm still 18." And I'll never forget that because I kind of understood what you meant. And she said, "I know that I'm old, but my mind feels like I should still be 18 years old." And I thought, probably now that you're 90, you still feel a little bit like you should not be.
19 now.
Like you're 19, that's right. So, thank you for all the years, and it's been wonderful growing old with you.
And thanks, Julie. Everybody here has got all those nice, wonderful memories. And, to live to be 90 years old, and to have lived with Dad and lived with Andy and Mary and me, and not Father Ray because he was wonderful, but then to give birth to two mooses like Mary and me, I think we each weighed 28 pounds at birth. So that was a heck of a thing. So
This isn't fair. You get to go up there and say all this.
has anybody else
can
got
only
anything
talk
to
one
say over here?
Rebuttal time there.
Okay, we got Sharon.
Well, I've got something that everybody else probably, or some of you know better than I do, but it's a memory from not so long ago, and we were having a dinner party, and somebody was telling a joke, and then Christy was telling a joke to somebody else, and everybody thought that was rude, so Christy told it out loud, and she told it out loud, and went, "Oh my goodness, you told that joke, it's so
Risque.
improper." And so I'm thinking, what is Mandy thinking of all this, or does she understand this at all, or whatever? And then when it was her time to talk, she told an even better joke.
So we're running about 20 to 9. I don't know if no one else has anything. Why we want to give Mom about a minute to say something. Is that all right if we go ahead?
I have one more.
One more thing from Julie, and then we'll
We
shut
all
her.
remember when Uncle Ray died, how traumatic it was for everybody, and especially Grandma. None of us understood, of course, the impact that it had on her. but for a long time, I think that I felt like maybe she would just as soon be there with him as opposed to down here without him. And then the night that, I'm sure she told all of us this, that Uncle Ray, that she had a dream that Ray came to her and said, okay, Mom, it's time to go. And at that point she said, nope, I think not. I think I'm going to hang around here for a while because I would miss all these people way too much. And I remember then thinking, you know, that was probably her time to go or could have been, and how lucky we are that she said no, she had to hang around here with us for a while.
Yeah, isn't that great? Okay, I'm gonna say something. One more word. I just want, what Julie was talking about that reminded me, you know, we kind of talked about our dad, and I kiddingly, but our dad was a very hard redneck man. But when when the 4 kids were born, before I was born, she got very sick. She had appendicitis and gangrene and all this, and they didn't expect her to live. That was in 1938, I think. And we talk about Dad and think about what could have happened to Mom. I especially, you know, I would not be here. And none of us would be here if it wouldn't be for Dad and for Mom, you know. And while Mom certainly was more gentle and understanding than Dad, I'll never forget Mom how amazing it was to me with money. How Mom used to talk about the time she forged Dad's name to get loans and things like that. Dad would buy cars, but he didn't worry about how the money was spent. And I remember Dad coming home on Wednesday nights from Penny's in St. Louis and giving Mom 3 brand new $20 bills. And that was what she made to send 5 kids to private school and to pay all the groceries and the power bills and whatever else, and then buy Dad's cars and everything else with 3 $20 bills. You know, granted it was 40 years ago long, but still, for 7 people, somehow, we were never wanting. We just, it was just terrific. And, I just always remember that about Mom. And the only other thing I wanted to say was, and I forgot to say this earlier, think about it. There's at least 50%, probably more of you in here that Grandma has already seen your behinds. Change your diapers. Most of Yeah, at the risk of some of you younger people thinking that we put a hammer on Mom's dear husband. No, Dad was a good man, and he worked very hard, tried to be as good a father and husband as he possibly could be, and they loved each other very much. And one little story I remember, I was 18 years old, I was 18 years old as a freshman at college, and Mom got very sick. I don't know what your situation was. You were at St. Elizabeth's, but you were...
Yeah, I was supposed to have cancer.
Yeah, very, very sick. And I left class that afternoon up there, and my dad was the only one sitting in the room, and she was not coherent. And he was holding her hand. It was the most tender moment I ever saw my father have. And he said to me, you look at her hand. And he said, she's got beautiful little hands. And so it was more than beating up on people. And he loved her very much. And now she's going to try to stand up here and say a few words to you guys, huh? You want to stand? Use your cane? Can you stand? Or do you want to sit?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where I just start, but I was thinking of sitting. I got up early this morning, and I was kind of reminiscing in my chair, and I was thinking back of a lot of things. I might go back to the time I was 5 years old. I can remember things very well yet, a lot of them. And then I was thinking how things were at that time when we were young. We had no electricity, no radio, no car, and we walked to school, and everywhere we walked it through the mud roads, Now you go from one end of the country to the other on the street, And I remember that when we were dating, we had a Ford Model T Ford. They had no battery. You had to crank it, and then many a time you got stuck with it. I remember one night we were out at a friend's house playing cards, and that was before we were married, and then it was so cold that people drained the water out of the car because it would freeze up, and by the time they go home to put some warm water in there again, they left it out again, And those days they said if you put antifreeze in, it'll eat up your radiator. And the people had, well, if my radiator gets rotten, I won't have money to buy one. So we had to put the water in and out each time we made a trip. And anyhow, I know he got in the car and he cranked it and got the car started. And it was this touring car with these curtains, and I don't know how many snaps you had to close. And when he had them all closed, and we was going to start out, the motor died. Then he had to take it all out again and crank again. So it was not as easy as it's today. You turn on your air conditioning or your heater. There was no heater in the car, no nothing. But somehow we made it, and I think when we got a little of those things, we appreciated it a lot more than if we'd have been born with it. So I don't know. Of course, I always thought of the kids. I always thought of the good thing. They never knew how poor they were, when we raised them, because most of the neighbor kids didn't have a lot more, People that have those families never had money like the kids have today. And I thought of this today, too, when we moved in that house. That's the first house on 14th Street we moved in from the country. Two of my neighbors told me, in case you ever lock yourself out, get my key. The key, every key fits every door around here. A lot of people never lock, So it wasn't so bad. We had its good times and its bad ones, but I mean, we knew that I think it helped us a lot later on when we got a little something. We really appreciated it more. So, but we wouldn't want to live through those days again, But I guess we leave it right there. Many times I think about it. It's like we raised 5 children, and on so little money. And I know I met Father McGivney a while back, and he said he'll never forget the time I told him we'd have waited until, like some people say today, we can't afford a child or we can't afford another one. I said we'd have never had any if we'd have waited till we could afford one. So by that time we'd have been too old. So we're glad for all of them. And they all did pretty well, turned out pretty nice. And all the grandchildren, that's true. It's a very interesting family. And I remember when they were talking about the little ones coming, it was Joey and Tommy that time. I don't think they remember it anymore. Anyhow, in the corner of the living room there by the kitchen and the living room, I had a big flower pot, and them two they were standing there, they're taking all that dirt out of that pot.
Tommy and Joey?
Yeah, they were the same age about it. And I know when Ray went home, he said, Mom, I don't think it'll ever be the house be the same again. But the kids had a lot of fun when they got together. Still nice to get together, I guess. I know when Andy, when you had your birthday that time, your 60th.
Yeah.
And I don't want to mention the names now, but people were there and said, my kids could never do that because his children weren't getting along with each other, to celebrate their father's birthday like that. So, nice to we're all here together.
Well,
Mother,
let's say
you want
well,
to?
we're going to say a prayer of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, let's sing it.
Then you can hang around. Or
First, we're going to
leave.
sing Happy Birthday first.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll
Ready?
sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear mother. Happy birthday to you.
And here's one more story. And
Go ahead.
Eddie Knoll, he had a Wessels Butcher
I'm going to
shop
remain standing because of my
on Main
dog.
Street, That was during the war. And you had to have stamps for everything. You could have so much sugar, 2 pair of shoes a year. For canned goods, you needed stamps, and coffee you couldn't get. You got post them, it was something you poured hot water over them. I mean, everything was so short. And then, and then this one day, I said, well, the kids always, we had no refrigeration, and every time you wanted to cook a meal, you had to go up to the butcher shop to get whatever you used, you know. And anyhow, Mr. Nolan told the kids that he sometimes would put something away for us if he could. He said, well, tomorrow I won't have any meat for you. So I told Dad in the morning that day, I said, we won't have any meat tonight. So anyhow, Noel called me. He said, well, one of the kids could come up, and he had a couple of slices of bologna, and I had a cold bologna on the table. Dad came in, he said, I thought you said we wouldn't have meat tonight. And one time, Andy, remember when you were looking for I was looking for a dime?
Yeah.
A dime bought a pound of sausage. You buy a pound of liver sausage or head cheese or bologna or some of those for a pound. That made us a meal, me and the kids at noon. There was Perina's at the other end and another grocery store at the other end. So, well, they went and got dimes versus pound of sausage, you know. And this one day I had a dime and I laid it on the windowsill. I was sure I laid it there. And when Andy came home, he was working at a power company. And I was looking all over for that dime. And he said, Mom, I'll never forget it. When he said, Mom, I hope someday I can sing as much of a dime as you do. Well, that's enough. There would be many more of those, but might as well quit sometime.
Yeah, you
Thank
could
you.
go on and on and on, yeah. I'm just sitting here thinking, for instance, in 43, you know, we moved to town and we had no electrical appliances at all.
No,
And
you couldn't buy any.
And I remember the toaster. We had a toaster that was like a piece of metal plate, had 4 wires on it. You put the bread on it on 4 sides. Remember that?
You got it from
And you
Stein's,
put it
yeah.
in the oven, I guess, or whatever. I don't know. No,
We
you
put it on the gas
top
burner.
of the burner. That's
Yeah, and then we had to turn the bread
Yeah.
around. Too.
Anyway, as I said earlier, because there's a tendency to go on and on and on, and it isn't really as important to those people who didn't live it as to those of us who did. But anyway,